I think I can get like the game.
Well, I mean, it might
Yeah,
as well. We might as
yeah,
well just like talk, just throw it out
yeah.
there. Welcome back to TriState Football's Monday Night Rewind. My name is Daniel Kuhn, of course, as always, my co-host Jacob Berkemeier. Yeah, we were just talking about the Saint X Middletown, or not Saint X Middletown game, but the Saint X Elder game, and Jacob's going to do that recap because he was the lucky one out of the two of us that got to be in a
Yeah,
nice, warm,
yeah.
dry. Paul, I almost called it Paul
Press
Brown
box.
Stadium. Jeez, oh Pete's
Just
Paycor
call it Paul
Stadium.
Brown, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Paycor Stadium press box. Meanwhile, I was at Anderson Trotwood out in Westchester and just completely soaked and freezing. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that game here in a minute, but of course, down to it, man. This is it. We're into the state semifinals. Thankfully for us, we have a lot to talk about. Well, thankfully for us, but not for our time. We have still have a lot to talk about because we still have, I think, 7 teams total left within the tri-state area that are going to be playing in the state semifinals for a shot to go to the respective state championship games. Off the top of my head, I know it's St. X, Middletown, which they play each other. We'll get into that as well. Then you've got Indian Hill and I miss Anderson. Duh.
Shelby. Indian Hill plays Shelby.
Indian Hill, yeah. And that's in Ohio. And then in Kentucky, we have Ryle is still alive. They had a big game on Friday night last week. I'm going to talk a little bit about that myself. And then Lloyd Memorial is undefeated, going for a perfect season. And finally, of course, Beechwood is still alive in their respective class. So we'll talk about them all as well. But of course, as per usual, Jacob is going to lead us off. He's going to just jump straight into the Elder game, which was dubbed by Mr. Portnoy as the game of the century in Cincinnati, I saw.
You know what? Elder fans need to blame Dave Portnoy for the loss, honestly. So he did his little shindig where he went around wearing both teams' colors and interacted with the student sections. And that was in the first quarter. He came up to the press box at like the start of the second, sat there for like 15 minutes, and then just left. And it was right after Elder had scored their touchdown to go up 27-7. And then after he left, Elder throws a pick. Punt gets like momentum just completely shifted. So if you're looking for a face to blame Dave Portnoy for that one.
He said, I swear to God, I hope he doesn't get a hold of this clip because that is, I'm not sure I want that. But I didn't even know he didn't stay the whole game. That's crazy.
No, he didn't. That was, common misconception. Everybody thinks he was there for the whole game because he went on Big Noon talking about it the next day. Mm-hmm. But forget about Portnoy, Barstool Sports. This game really did live up to hype, though, because I know a lot of us that were sitting up in the press box, it got to – it was – Elder had scored to go up 27-7. Yeah, it was 7 minutes and 39 seconds left in the second quarter. We're all kind of looking at each other like, is this just like going to be the game? Like, are we going to get a running clock here? Like, none of us could really believe like how strong they came out and how big of a blowout it was looking like it was going to be. And then, man, Kobe Clapper really just put the team on his back in that second quarter. He was able to intercept Caden Estep, had about a 30-yard run back, got X into position, like 30 yards out. They scored, and it was Logan Von Holly, I talked to Coach Speck after the game. He was unbelievable all night for them, and he didn't play at the start of the year. So, like, I saw them week 1. He wasn't playing, and he's played, I think, a total of 6 games so far for them this year, and it's made a huge difference in their offense because obviously, we've talked about Cam Taylor. Cam Taylor didn't even have a reception in that game, but Cam Taylor was kind of the early season favorite target. And, having so many weapons now on offense, I think it's made X a little bit more well-rounded and being able to do some different things. And Vollmer played really well. They were running a lot of wildcat formation with Vollmer, and an interesting wrinkle that they put in. Their wildcat formation is Vollmer at QB, and then Clapper and Aiden Reeder lead blocking for him. So you got 3 power 4 guys in the backfield just straight up the middle, like good luck trying to tackle them.
That is daunting.
But to kind of do a little quick like stat review, Estep came out on fire, man, and he was like, he maybe had 3 incomplete passes on their first like 4 drives. I mean, he ended up finishing with 261, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. But I mean, I think the majority of his passing yards came in that first half, and really like the first quarter and a half. And I mean, he added 45 yards on the ground, but X did a great job limiting the run game. Elder had 27 total rushes, 77 yards. Yes, they had 3 rushing touchdowns, but they were averaging less than 3 yards a carry. Were able to stop and contain Tommy Becker. But I was very impressed with their passing attack. And I think that's, not to say it's what lost them the game, but I think they got a little too conservative after they got up by so much. What got them up was they were spreading the St. X defense out. They were running a lot of 5 wide sets. Jake Beer, a sophomore wide receiver, got loose for like a 21-yard touchdown. And then Drew Walligman, he's a junior. He scored like a 75-yarder just on, a little seam route, right up the middle. And I think they kind of went away from that and we're trying to just, like you're playing Madden, you put on chew clock and you're just trying to just, burn that clock out. And the run game wasn't working, where I felt like they should have just, Estep was having a good game. He threw that 1 pick, in the second half, but that whole first half, he was throwing the ball really well. And, X on the other side, I mean, they had a terrible first quarter and a half. I mean, offense looked all out of whack. They were struggling to complete little like swing passes and, just easy short throws. Weren't really running the ball well. Couldn't stop Elder. And then it really was just that momentum shift where, he got the pick, Clapper got the pick, and then the following possession after X scores, they force a 3-and-out. Elders on their 15-yard line, block punt by who else than Kobe Clapper. They pick it, scoop and score. So all of a sudden it goes from being 27-7 to 27-21 in the blink of an eye. I mean, it was within 2 minutes. So, Elder comes out, first play, first drive of the second half, scores. But the real backbreaking moment in this game, I felt like, was St. X had a 7-minute drive in the third quarter that took them, where it was just like they methodically moved the ball, kept getting first downs. Jackson Fry, he had a couple huge conversions with his leg on 4th down. It was like 4th and 5s, and he just scrambled out and was able to get, 6 yards and barely get that first down, but keep those drives alive. And I think with all the momentum from the second quarter, and Elder scoring so quick to start the third, having that long drive just kind of took the wind out of their sails. And then, Von Holly had that touchdown. It was a nice little corner route. And then in the fourth quarter, X scored 2 more times, and they were both Daniel Vollmer Wildcat runs. And Elder just couldn't get it done. I mean, they were so close, too, on their last defensive possession. I mean, they had X in a 3rd and 15 with a little over 2 minutes left. I think it was like 2:15 left on the clock. And Elder, was in the backfield, had 3 guys surrounding Jackson Fry. And he made a little, shimmy move, and the right hand grabbed the face mask, ripped the helmet off. So instead of it, and he was going to throw it, and who knows, that ball probably would have been picked because he was surrounded. But you have a mistake like that, and it's not one. It wasn't intentional or anything, but it just sucks if you're an Elder fan or on their team. That's kind of what blew the game at the end there. They could have had one more chance to, win it, but they also had another in the third quarter. They were on their 10-yard line. Punt got snapped over the punter's head, which luckily their punter was Estep, so he had the wherewithal he had the wherewithal. He picked the ball up a yard from stepping out in the back of the end zone, scrambled and just threw it to one of his personal protectors. It hit the dirt, wasn't a grounding, but it was an incomplete pass. So instead of X getting a safety and the ball back, they got the ball on the 20, but X ended up scoring. So really, Elder lost their long snapper before in the week prior against Princeton, and that really killed them because they lost this game on special teams, which is a terrible way to lose it. But the game lived up to all the hype. I mean, there was 22,000 people there. The whole lower bowl was filled. So, in terms of just atmosphere and then the game actually delivering, seeing X come back like that, it was really cool to see. And I think X has just really silenced any doubters that they've had all year, maybe us included.
Poor Lakota East.
Yeah, but I think it's just they were a little shaky, kind of all year, and you didn't know how to really read them. But it's like they peak at the right time. It seems like every year where they just start playing their best ball. And Steve Speck does such a good job of getting them to that point. Like Jackson Fry's progression throughout this year has been, awesome. At the start of the year, he was, struggling a little bit, and it's been much better. He threw for 223, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Vollmer had 18 for 91 and 2 touchdowns. Them moving to Vollmer to running backs helped them tremendously too, just having a playmaker at that spot. And, defense is the defense. They're really good. Braden Riley also had an interception at the end of the game. The Clemson commit, he's really good as well. But, I've already kind of rambled for like 10 minutes. So if you have any thoughts or anything you want to contribute, you can.
Well, I think what else is there to say except for what you said? I think, when you're in a big situation, let's just take the fact that it was at Paycor into consideration, right? As a high school player, that's a lot of, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but that you're a lot of adrenaline, a lot of emotion, and Elder comes out, they kind of do what they've done all year and just kind of been dominant, played competent or complementary football. It's been a long day, people, but. They play complementary football, and then sometimes just when the other team gets a big momentum shift like that X did there, you're talking about it. I think you said that was in the second quarter, right? When Clapper did all that crazy stuff. That sucks it. It just sucks the life out of the sideline, right? All of a sudden, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, this game isn't as, in control as we thought it was, and you're kind of sat there and you're like. Well, now we went from being on full throttle on the gas to we kind of let off a little bit because we're playing a little bit more conservative because we got a big lead to now we got to go full bore again. It's hard to do that mentally, I think, from a player's perspective and even from a coaching perspective. Yeah. And listen, to end with, to just kind of echo what you said, I think, we both were kind of in the boat that we thought X was just a little bit shaky is probably the right word, right? They didn't think they were that trustworthy throughout the regular season, and that's not a dig at all. I think let's just take LaSalle out of the picture. No offense to the Lancers, but let's just talk about X, Elder, and Moeller. Out of those three, right, it was just kind of felt like Elder and Moeller were the two teams that were going to be able to make this run as it went into the postseason, and X kind of was there, and it's like, okay, if they put it all together, and if anything, if this run has taught me anything over the last 3 weeks as a reporter, is never doubt Steve Speck. He's got the experience. He's been here before. He's won state championships. He's been there a long time. He knows how to get the best out of his players. He knows how to put them in the right positions to win in the postseason, and I think that's coming through during this run as well. And we're going to talk about their next game here in a little bit, but I think we'll move quickly. Yeah. To the other game that the one of us was at. I had the luxury of seeing Anderson play for a second week in a row. I saw them play Trotwood Madison Division II. Like I said, unlike Jacob, I was quite cold on Friday night. So cold to the point where my fingers were not typing very well, and I accidentally called Lakota West High School Lakota East. And somebody had to call me. Somebody on Twitter called me out on it, and that was kind of like an embarrassing moment. But I digress. It was quite cold and rainy, and I think, I don't know about what it was like downtown, Jacob, but at least in Westchester, let's talk about the elements for a minute. They weren't ideal on Friday night, right? Mm-hmm. Very cold, very windy, and it wasn't like it was just, you'd rather it just pour for like 15, 20 minutes than what it was doing on Friday night, which was that.
Yeah, it was just like spitting, just kind of like misty rain.
Yeah. But I don't know about downtown, but at least in Westchester, it didn't let up for a while. For a majority of the game, it was pretty consistent. And so what I'm getting to here is let's just think about the Anderson offense, right? They play a very, very spread offense, very heavy spread offense. They want to throw the ball around. Sometimes when the conditions are like that, that's a struggle, right? And you have to
Absolutely.
adjust, and that can catch you off guard. And I actually think that it kind of did at the beginning of this game. Anderson came out pretty not flat. I mean, they were still playing to the level at which you would expect Anderson to do so, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But on offense, it just they love to run these little swing out plays to the running back or the slot receiver to start the game. I'm not trying to fool anybody and spill any secrets. They do it, I think, every week.
Right.
But they ran
it's essentially their run game. Their little screen pass game. That's their run game, pretty much.
But they ran it like 2 or 3 times to open the game on offense, and I think they dropped it every time because the ball was just wet. Excuse me. And so it actually was kind of a mirror image of the LaSalle game from the perspective of Anderson just kind of started off a little slow. Trotwood was able to grab a little bit of an early lead. They scored the first touchdown 7-0. But after that, Anderson just flips a switch, man. They just turn on whatever the heck they've got in their DNA over there on in Anderson Township, and they just dominate. And listen, this game wasn't like it was just your traditional Anderson thumping, where they're just outclassing the other team in every aspect. Listen, Trotwood Madison was not a bad football team at all. I was actually quite impressed with how they played. Let's just talk about the stats here. Armani Rogers for Trotwood, their little receiver. I think he's also backup quarterback technically. He's a little short kid. He's probably no more than 5'10", and he plays like slot receiver. And he's their spark plug, and he had a great game. 11 catches, 123 yards in a touchdown. He was the one who scored Trotwood's only touchdown of the game. He did a little bit of like a double move on one of the Raptors defensive backs, threw free wide open in the end zone. That's what put Anderson behind early. But outside of that, Dallas Sheehy for Trotwood, their quarterback, had a fine game as well. He was under a lot of pressure. I'll get to that in a second. But let's just talk about Anderson again. Owen Scalf. He's a junior, and we don't talk about – I mean, we do, but we don't, right? When we talk about elite quarterbacks, I know A-Step's name came up a lot. Matt Ponatowski. Talk a lot about Jackson Frey, the kid from Princeton. What's his name? I forget his name now. We talked about him quite a bit this year. I think, or am I thinking of the kid who went from Princeton to Mason? What was his name?
Birch, D'Angelo Birch. Yeah,
D'Angelo Birch. Thank you.
Princeton's been rotating some quarterbacks.
I had the half of it right. I just forgot he transferred for a second there. But we talk about him a lot. Owen Scalf, man. I mean, listen, he's this baby-faced kid, kind of similar to Ponatowski last year. You'd never expect him to be just as ice cold as he is under center.
Yeah.
I mean, he had in the rain, mind you, because it didn't quit almost all night, 406 yards on 59 attempts, 5 touchdowns, and he did have 1 interception, but it was kind of a cheap interception. It was a tip ball. It wasn't like he made a mistake.
Yeah.
I just think he is I hate to call him an unsung hero because we talk about him so much, but if he's dealing, they're almost unbeatable. I mean, they've got enough weapons on the outside to where, and even if they didn't, he'll just pick a guy and throw it to him, and they'll find a way to make it work. I don't know what it is about their short passing game, but it's almost lethal to the point of I think they run a slant pass for a 50-yard touchdown every week at this point. Yeah. Cooper Kathman or Tyson Weaver or Tegan Jalek, they just catch the ball and take off. It's just automatic. And I think, if let's just talk about their game coming up this weekend. They play Big Walnut, who I don't know a ton about. But if you're Big Walnut's defense, the first thing you've got to do is find a way to stop that passing game. And then in order to have any chance of beating Anderson, because they're just so efficient and so automatic, it's pretty much offensive fluidity that I haven't seen in a long time. And I can only say that now because I've covered them 2 weeks in a row. And I've seen them, 2 playoff games, big playoff games. They do the same things, but they do it so well that it's almost borderline impossible for the defense to defend them.
Yeah.
And then let's just kind of keep going through the box score really quick. I mentioned Cooper Kathman, 107 yards receiving on 15 receptions. He had a touchdown. Tyson Weaver was the only player on Anderson's roster that had more than one touchdown. He had two. Also had 138 yards receiving on 9 receptions. And then he threw touchdowns to Braden Moore and Tanner Holt, who I think have scored 2 touchdowns all season. So he was definitely spreading the ball around a lot. And then the defense, listen, the Anderson defense, it's not like Kobe Clapper, right? I mean, there's not a single guy on that defense that I could sit there and point out and go, he's the one who carries the load on his back. And I know my cousin is the starting linebacker, and he's had a great season. I'm not not trying to downplay his accomplishments, but they're just such a good unit. They complement each other. They play their schemes very well. They play a lot of 2 high safety, and they just have playmakers all around the ball. I mean, Jackson, I almost called him Jackson. That's his brother. Brady Kuhn had a great game, 9 tackles, 1 sack. Himori Tai, very underrated defensive back for the Raptors. Reed Baker, he's their like defensive tackle linebacker hybrid. He had a great game on Friday night. Also had a sack as well. And then you could go down the list. I mean, there's like, I think 8 guys over 5 tackles. I think the bottom line, what I'm getting at here is Anderson is just they're a great football team. They're not a great team with like 1 or 2 guys that really kind of drive the whole thing. They are a collection of very, very well coached, well disciplined, and committed to what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that's one of the things that makes them so dangerous. And they're going for, this would be their 3rd straight semifinals, an accomplishment on its own, because I grew up in Anderson. For anybody who couldn't guess, Anderson's won 1 state championship in its entire lifespan, right? This was not a program that anybody really looked at and went, man, they're a powerhouse. But my gosh, they are now. And all the credit to Coach Evan Dreyer and his coaching staff. It'll be exciting to see what they do this coming weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, I just want to add one thing, kind of how you were talking about, like their passing attack. The only way that passing attack works as well as it does is if you have buy-in and commitment from your receivers to block their butts off every play. Because when you're throwing these swings, bubbles, screens, whatever it is to outside, you need your outside receivers to block and make sure that one of the hips that runner can cut off of and get positive yards. And, it's just 59 attempts in the rain is crazy too for Owen Scalf. And I really do think, kind of the best quarterback, at least in Cincinnati, for next year is really going to be between him and Estep. Both are going into their senior years. Both are coming off really good junior seasons. And then I did tune in to like Greg and Safwan on the post-game show, and it was literally right when they were calling Dreyer. And Dreyer, I know, said just like, everybody talks about our offense, but nobody talks about the defense and just how good the defense has been all year, and especially in this playoff run too. So they're going to need more of their defense because, I don't really know a ton about Big Walnut either.
Yeah.
But Avon's the team they lost to last year. They're on the other side of the bracket. They play
Walsh Jesuit, I'm pretty sure.
Walsh Jesuit, yeah.
Walsh Jesuit, yeah.
I don't know much about them either. But Avon, whatever they did last year, and I know the conditions last year were like snow,
it was like rain, a blizzard, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, like bad conditions, but for a team that throws the ball as much as they do, there's no guarantee that you don't get, you get just like a nice 45-degree, no rain, no snow night in December. There could be some inclement weather, especially going up north for the state games. So just kind of something to keep your eye on. I mean, I hope Anderson, keeps doing what they're doing, beats Big Walnut. So we have, another team to talk about. We're guaranteed in region 4, Division 1. One team's going to advance, whether it's Middletown or St. X, but so that's kind of all I wanted to add on that subject.
And I'll just cap it off with this, and then we can move on. You mentioned scalp and throwing as much as he did in conditions. I talked to him after the game, and I pretty much point blank asked him, how do you mentally prepare yourself to when you know you're going to throw the ball that much and the conditions are not good? How do you mentally prepare yourself in order to do what you are asked to do effectively, right? Because the rain could definitely affect the passing game, right?
Yeah.
And he was just so confident in himself and just very adamant and to the point. I don't care about the conditions. I'm going to just do what I do best, and that's sling the ball around. And I think that's all you need to know about him, right? I mean, they have the right guys, and they're just a great team.
Absolutely. Do you want to do Indian Hill next real quick, I guess?
Yeah, sure. We can briefly talk about, I mean, I don't want to say briefly, but just for the, sake of time, since we weren't at the game, it's a little harder for us to break it down.
There's a lot more to talk about when we watch the games ourselves, but I'm just looking at this box score right now. I mean, Indian Hill whooped up on Valley View 41-14. But it was close after the first quarter.
Yeah,
it was Valley View was ahead 14-13. And then Indian Hill just rattled off, let's see how much, 28 unanswered. So, and I mean, Indian Hill in Division 4, I mean, their formula is tough to beat, man, because Devlin Daniel, 16 rushes, 115 yards, 1 touchdown. Evan Riggs, 12 for 165, 4 touchdowns. Both of them had 75-yard touchdowns. So, I mean, as a team, 34 rushes, 359 yards. And then they added, I mean, Devlin Daniel also was 8 for 10 for 64 yards. And, of course, his 2 incompletions were interceptions. So, moving forward into state, you would ideally like to clean those turnovers up. If you're going to throw the ball such a limited amount, hopefully you can kind of not turn the ball over. But, I mean, with their run game like that, it's going to be hard to beat him because Devlin Daniel's such a good athlete, and he's been doing it all year. There's a reason Indian Hill's in this spot. He's just been running all over these teams. Not really as much even throwing. It's just, he only had a little over 1,000 yards passing on the year. He literally has more rushing yards than he does passing yards and has 21 rushing touchdowns, 1 fumble on the year, 13 passing touchdowns, 5 picks. So he's been – and he's a junior too. So I guess, he might be in that conversation next year too.
A lot of good young really quarterback talent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, defensively, they also had 2 interceptions. Jackson Fry, which is kind of crazy. They have a Jackson Fry too. Along with X.
They also have a Vollmer, if you noticed that.
Yeah, George Vollmer. Both of them had picks. But Jackson spelled with an X and then Frye, not Frey. But he had a pick 6. Evan Riggs playing both ways, had a sack, 2 tackles for a loss. So that's the other thing you kind of keep in mind with these, smaller schools. They have a lot of guys who play both ways, which, it's a testament to them as well. You go through 14, they're on game 14 upcoming this week. It's like, that's a long season for, high school kids too. And it's like when you're playing both ways, kind of taking care of your body throughout the season, making sure you're ready to go each week. That's something to not overlook with these smaller schools just because they might not get the media attention that a St. X or a, Anderson or Middletown or some of these schools are getting. Doesn't mean, to overlook them. And, not a bad season for Valley View either, but they just ran into, a really good team. Once I saw kind of what Indian Hill did to Taft and being able to beat Taft, I'm like, they should get through, but we'll have to see. All these other teams in Division 4, I really don't know much about, like Shelby and then Cleveland, Glenville, and Nottingham.
It would go with Indian Valley.
I don't know. But yeah, so those other 3 teams not super familiar with, but what I can say about Indian Hill's keys to success is literally if you're going to run for 350 yards, I don't think you're going to lose these next 2 games. If they can replicate what they did to Valley View, they'll be completely fine these next 2 games.
Yeah, and I'll add just very quickly. When I watched Indian Hill play Wyoming earlier this year in person, you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, they're not a passing offense. Like Devin Daniel, don't get me wrong, kid can throw the ball, but like when you see him in person, you look at that kid, you look at Devin Daniel, and you go, "He's the quarterback." Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? He looks like
Yeah,
he should be the
like
running back or
or
a
like a tight
linebacker.
end or something like
Yes,
that. Yeah,
he's a big, strong, well built kid, and he runs that offense. I think exactly the way that Coach John Rodenberg wants him to. And then you mentioned it. Excuse me, Evan Riggs. He's a very nice compliment for them in the backfield as well. They just they're just so good at what they do, and they've proven that all year. And I'll admit I didn't think they'd beat Taft, but like what Jacob said when they did, I'm like, okay, man, they're for real. And
yeah,
listen, I obviously know Coach Rodenberg very well. I know everything I know everything about a Coach Rodenberg defense. I played on one,
nice.
rode the bench on one, but I was there, and I know that that's going to be a really tough unit to find a way to score on consistently, and I think they've proven that once again throughout the playoffs. And you know what? Good for Indian Hill as well. I feel like that this is a long time coming for that program. They've always kind of been, second. I don't want to say little brother. That's not fair. But, they always kind of got stuck in Wyoming's shadow, within that Cincinnati Hills League, right? And this has been their
Mhm.
big breakout year. And I think they're going to build off of this no matter what happens over the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And then, so I think we're gonna do a little, segment talk about Middletown, and then maybe do a little preview of the Middletown X game, and then
Mm-hmm.
kick it over to Danny for the little Kentucky roundup of all the Kentucky schools we have left.
All the
Unfortunately,
all the schools. There's
Middletown
only three.
does not have
A
a
box
box
score.
score, so I know
Ah,
that they beat Wayne 21-14. Don't know who really scored or how. I know that it
yeah.
was like, I know Middletown was down because we were kind of tracking it as best we
Mm-hmm.
could with the Elder X game going on. And Middletown was down 14-7 in the fourth quarter and then ended up tying the game. And then I think they got an interception to get the ball back. And they ended up scoring again, winning the game. So, I mean, Middletown season, it's been overlooked, hasn't been talked about enough, but they've been awesome all year. And I mean, their defense is just loaded. Their defense has played so well throughout the season. I'm just going to look at their schedule real quick. I believe so. The highest point total that they've given up was to Troy week one. They gave up 20 points, but since then, they haven't allowed more than 14 points in a game. Have a lot of shutout wins or one score wins. And it's like the offense really hasn't been like dominant, but it's just like their
Yeah.
defense has just kept them in games and they force turnovers. They get to the quarterback. They cause a lot of problems for opposing teams' offenses, which is why I I don't know. It's like we were kind of talking about this, before the show. This X and Middletown matchup is going to be really interesting
Mm-hmm.
because Elder, kind of had the best defense on paper, I guess, statistically and stuff, in Division One this year, um, and X put up 42 points on them. But I just think the style of defense that both teams play is a little bit different. I mean, like I said, JD Singletary and CJ Bryant are both absolute animals on the Middletown defense. I mean, JD Singletary, he has 15 total sacks, 23 and a
Mm-hmm.
half tackles for a loss, 4 forced fumbles, a pick. I mean, and he's 5'9", 185 pounds playing defensive line. So just speed. Like, that's what that tells me. It's like if you're that undersized playing D line, he's probably just rushing off the edge with crazy speed. Like, I haven't had the luxury of watching Middletown this year. But then CJ Bryant, he's their just do it all guy at middle linebacker, uh, 5'9", 210. He's got 113 tackles on the year, 17 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, a touchdown. I mean, he's just everywhere. And then they have who's their guy? I thought they had somebody who had a bunch of interceptions. Maybe not. I guess not. I thought they had somebody who had like 5 picks on their team last week when I checked, but it's not popping up. Nobody's. But either way, their defense is extremely talented,
Virgil
and they forced turn. Huh?
Virgil Coleman, Jacob. Virgil Coleman
Oh
has
yeah,
5
there it is. There it
interceptions
is.
this
Yeah,
year.
5. Okay, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. So yes, they have guys in the back end who can make plays on the ball. Um, you know, so yeah, they've had 16 interceptions and 9 forced fumbles on the year, which if they've played 13 games, that's almost averaging out to 2 turnovers a game that they're forcing. Um, and offensively, Ace Cooper's kind of the guy that makes their offense go. He's really talented. Even though the stats might not necessarily tell you that, because it's like, oh, 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's not crazy, but he's really like the X factor for them on offense. Deep ball threat. And if they can get him going against that X defense, that'll be, really helpful for their chance to win. But I do think, it's like, of course, I said it last week, like, oh, the Elder St. X game will be like 20-13, and then it's 42-34, and there was like 34 points scored in the first 15 minutes of the game. It's like
the anti GCL South game, right?
Yeah, right. Like you're like, oh, 2 GCL teams playing each other.
Yeah.
They're gonna beat up on each other on defense, and maybe this will be the game that's closer to 2013 or 16-14 or something like that. But
I'll be there. I will be covering the game on Friday night up in Dayton at Welcome Stadium. And I'll say this. I actually tend to not tend. I agree with Jacob. I think that this is has all the ingredients to be like a 21-20 game or like a 2014 game. I mean, heck, you look at what Middletown did to Springfield a couple weekends ago. And Springfield's one of the better teams in the state. I mean, they've won state, I think, 2 years in a row at one point, or maybe they won one. My point is that they held it. It was a 14-0 game. They just needed 2 offensive touchdowns, and that was it. That's all they needed. And X, listen, that they have a great defense, and Middletown clearly has a very, very good defense. I think it's going to be all. I don't know if there's any wrestling fans out there, but Jim Ross used to say "slobber knocker." It's going to be a slobber knocker. That's what this game has got the recipe to be. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited to. I mean, I've seen St. X this year. I mean, I know you have as well. I'm very excited to see Middletown play because, like Jacob said, I mean, me and him were talking before the show started. This year when you thought GMC, who'd you think of? Princeton, West, maybe East, right? I mean, Middletown wasn't even really on anybody's radar, and I can't believe I'm so impressed with the middies this year. And I think you had mentioned the coach's name and how much of a turnaround he's done.
Huge shout out to Collie Jones. That's their head coach. I think he took over 3 years ago, and I think in his first year they went like 3-8. Second year 5-6. This year 11-2.
Yeah,
just kind of he's got these guys buying in, playing really good football. And I just think, like also talking about their Lebanon game, like I watched Lebanon play. Lebanon has some legit guys on offense and defense, and they just shut them out. And I mean, it was like Lebanon had 145 total yards for that game. So it was like there was nothing working for them. So obviously X is a little bit, they got some guys too, but against Elder, X was running a lot of these swing passes and kind of trying to hit these like quick, flat routes. I have a feeling Middletown will be able to sniff that out pretty well. So I'm curious if X will kind of, obviously your scheme changes game to game based on who you're playing. So, they could come out and throw the ball completely differently or run the ball differently than they did versus Elder. But I think if they tried doing that stuff against the Middletown defense, I'm not sure how much it'll work just because there's so much speed on that Middletown defense, especially in the secondary compared to Elder. So I'm really excited to see what happens during that game. I'll probably, stream it and watch.
What if it's on Channel 1?
I have YouTube TV, so I get,
so do I. So I can't watch it anyways either.
yeah,
Well, I'll be
I
there,
don't.
but
I don't have the Spectrum luxury. I'll have to give OHSAA my money. But I have a family Thanksgiving Friday, so I won't be covering any games. But
yeah.
I do want to at least watch that game. I think it'll be a good one. And yeah, just kind of wanted to highlight the middies again because we didn't do a good enough job, I don't think, talking about. We started to as they kept just like winning games throughout
Well,
the
like
year.
we said,
I know,
they
like early in the
kind of
year, we were
flew under the radar, right? I
yeah,
mean, they just like it's just the truth. I mean, it's not media bias, but it is, right? I mean, you think of certain conferences, you think of the same teams because they're always the teams that are at the top. And Middletown's done an incredible job proving all of us wrong this year. I think to wrap up that quick that preview recap, overview of Middletown, I'll give my Danny Kuhn keys to the game.
yeah.
What I think will be the winning success for either one of these teams. I think if you're Middletown defensively, the main goal is to stop Vollmer in the rushing game because I think they have a good enough secondary to kind of shut down Fry and keep the Bombers passing game in check.
Man,
and then
Von Holly though,
you've got a point, man.
Last week.
Yeah,
he came back and 5 of his catches, 3 of them were touchdowns. Like
I genuinely do think this game comes down to who wins the battle in the trenches and has the most time of possession. I genuinely do. That was going to be my key for Middletown, at least offensively, right? Is to keep time of possession, keep the ball away from X's, they can be really high powered when they want to be offensively. Keep their ball away from them and just churn clock. And I think they'll have a recipe for success.
Absolutely.
All right. I guess we'll just go on to what we're tracking better tonight, Jacob. We're at 41 minutes. That's shorter than normal, but we're losing a lot. We're getting less and less teams, so I guess in theory it should be shorter. But I'll kick it to myself. I've been doing the Kentucky stuff. At least through the playoffs, and I'll admit we've been kind of not. I don't want to say we've glazed over it, but it's been me and him have been to I think all Ohio games this playoff season, right? So we've been primarily talking about those games we went and saw in person and reported on or covered, I guess I should say. And we haven't really given Kentucky a lot of love. I'm going to give them a little bit of love tonight. Ryle is going for a second straight trip to the state or the Class 6A state championship game. And they got one step closer last Friday night. Big win for the Raiders. They got a 28-27 win in overtime over Frederick Douglass, who Frederick Douglass by no means was a bad team this year either. They did lose to Highlands earlier in the year, but Highlands, who did lose actually, by the way, I guess it's worth pointing that out. Unfortunately, the Bluebirds didn't make it to the finals, but they had a great season on their own. Anyways, I get back to the Raiders really quickly. I mean, when you have a game with a scoreline come in like that, your interest is piqued, right? And I just took a look at the box score, kind of see what they did, what worked for them. And listen, the first name that comes up when anybody talks about Ryle, us included and me included, is Jacob Savage. But the unsung hero of that Raiders offense is Damon Innes. He's their second he spells Savage in the running game. When I saw them play Covcath early this year, he had a really, really solid night when Savage went down with some cramps because, Savage does play both ways. I'm actually pretty sure he's committed to Indiana to be a linebacker. Right. So Damon Innes, he's also a senior. He had 15 rushing attempts, 86 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. I mean, he was kind of the cog for them offensively. He continues to be a really solid player for them that's kind of flown under the radar this year. Nathan Varax only had 8 pass completions, but they went for 228 yards.
That's such an interesting box score because 8 for 22, 228, and no passing touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean,
so
Dylan Lee,
you had long passes that just guys were getting tackled probably on the 5 or the 1.
Dylan Lee, I mean, he had 4 receptions for 168 yards. Unfortunately, Kentucky doesn't give us the averages like Ohio does, but that what's that come out to be 40 yards a reception, 50 yards, something like that. And Dylan Lee's a really, really solid player for Ryle as well. He plays both ways. Very good defensive player in the defensive backfield, and then he's also a very good receiver. And then just, their defense, 10 total tackles for Xavier Collins. He's a junior. He's kind of – everybody's everybody's afraid of big bad Jacob Savage, but they've got some really really good playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they're very well set up to go back to the state championship game. They do play South Warren, who is undefeated. South Warren is a very tough opponent for the Raiders. I think it's going to be a game you absolutely need to keep an eye on. Kentucky doesn't do neutral site games, so this is at South Warren. Now, the state final will be at Kroger Field in Lexington, UK Stadium, but they don't do neutral site games all the way up until the state championship game. So this will be a home field advantage for South Warren. I think that Ryle has to do what they do best, and that's just play complementary football offensively and just let the I want to say the big dogs. Let's let the boys eat on defense, because I think that's what makes them such a good team. Is they let their guys play their style of football, and they're suffocating. So it'll be worth keeping an eye out for that game. And then I'll quickly just cover. We do still have two other schools who are from the area in the Kentucky State Championships. Color me shocked, everybody. Beechwood's in the semifinals for Class 2A. They handled Prestonburg quite easily, 42-0. They did. Now I know how I just said there's no neutral site games. This is actually a neutral site game. I think it's because it's a big game. Owensboro Catholic is who they face this coming weekend on Friday night. Owensboro Catholic has only got one loss. They lost to Owensboro, but only by 6 points. So I think this is going to be Beechwood's toughest test yet. I'd be very interested in seeing how this game plays out. I mean, obviously Tyler Fryman and that Beechwood offense is just makes you as a football fanatic makes you want to salivate, right? They're just very good at what they do. I don't know much about Owensboro Catholic, but I do know that I've heard they have a very, very well-respected defense. So worth keeping an eye on that as well. And then finally, the only school in Kentucky that we have that's still undefeated. Shout out, and we've talked about them kind of here and there, but shout out to the freaking Lloyd Juggernauts, man. What an incredible season they've had up there. I know they're down in Hebron. I guess I should say down there. But they just an incredible year. They've only the most points they've get up all year was 27 to Connor, but that was way early in the season. And I think they're punching above their weight class there. I think Connor's a higher class than they are. So just an outstanding, incredible season. They beat Russell 28-13 last weekend. They face off against Murray at home, so they will be down in Hebron. And Murray's undefeated as well. So a battle of the undefeateds. That'll definitely be worth keeping an eye on as well. If we want to talk just briefly about their statistics, let's see if it can get it to pull up for me here. Hold on. Everybody knows how we feel about the Kentucky
honestly,
website.
Kentucky, it's a little annoying, but the stats are always up.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I do appreciate.
They do a great job of that. I'm not complaining. I just kind of throw a little bit of shade there. I think their user interface is not necessarily the greatest, but I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to say no to really, really quickly updated stats, right?
Yeah.
The biggest cog, I think, this year for the Juggernauts, I mean, Caleb Evans, their senior quarterback, is a kind of a game manager, can make things happen with his arm and his feet. I think they get that offensive going, whether it's through him, it runs through him, right? So whether they can get him going on the ground or get him going through the air, I think they'll be fine. I don't know much about excuse me. I don't know much about. I'm losing my voice, Jacob. We've been talking so much.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Murray, but it seems like they're a very good team. So I guess I'll click on. They beat Lexington Catholic last weekend. So let's just take.
I do want to point out for Lloyd, last game, Lincoln Tomlinson, sophomore. Looks like linebacker and maybe tight end. 18 total tackles, 2 tackles for a loss.
Jeez.
One sack. And then Avery Conrad, who is their starting running back too. He had 12 rushes, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 17 tackles on defense.
That's crazy. See, Jacob's doing the dirty work. I didn't even go down to the bottom of the defensive stats. That's my apologies. I'm sorry, Lloyd Memorial.
And what's crazy too is Tomlinson's a sophomore, Avery Conrad's a junior.
I did know
So
that. That's a very, very young, talented team they have there at Lloyd, and
yeah.
I think they're going to be very much worth keeping an eye on for years to come. But
Mhm.
just an incredible season from them. They've kind of always been, at least for as long as I've been covering Kentucky football, which is 2 years. But going back and looking at some of the past, historic stats, they've kind of
Yeah.
always been kind of around. They've always had a pretty decent program, but they've really just had a great year this year. And like I always
Mhm.
say, second best. I'm going to put it out there, Jacob. I think it's the second best team name in Kentucky. I think Dayton
Yeah.
High School takes the crown of best. They're the Green Devils. I think that name's awesome.
Yeah.
But Juggernauts is also really, really cool. So, or Thoroughbreds. I'm
Absolutely.
getting off top. I'm getting off topic.
Yeah.
Uh, anyways, maybe I'll convince Dan and Greg to let me do top 10 best team names in
Yeah,
Kentucky
maybe that could
next
be, like
next
our
year.
end of the year
Off
segment
season
or
off season
something.
filler content.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll see what they say. Well, anyways, I think that about wraps it up for us. And we talked to our superiors this tonight. Actually, I think we're going to be going all the way through the state championship games. I know
Yeah,
last year
so
we ended at the beginning. I think next
the
week would have
week
been our last
before,
week last
yeah.
year. Yes, but this year we're going to do all the way through. And I think me and Jake were going to come up with a little something exciting for the last show of the season, not just for ourselves but also for our incredible viewers who've been awesome this year, and then as well
Yeah,
for recognize some of the players and schools that have
absolutely.
really caught our eye this year. I know we've talked about a lot of them, but it'll also give us a chance to talk about some kids and some players and maybe some teams we haven't gotten a ton of. I don't want to say TV time, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten a chance to really break down into their stuff. So that being said, we will see everybody back here again next week, same time, 8 p.m. ish. I know it's like somewhere between
I
8
feel
and
like it's been
8:15
usually
usually.
8:15 mostly.
Yeah,
We're
somewhere in
kicking
that
off right
range.
when Monday Night Football is kicking off.
Well,
So
the Bengals aren't playing. Not that anybody cares about that anymore. But
yeah, let's just not talk about that.
but we've got some awesome games this weekend. Can't wait to talk about them next week. As always, you can check out any of Tri-State Football's content at tristatefootball.com, that amazing website that was brand new this year. You can catch our show after it's over on any major podcast platforms, your Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you may get your podcasts from. I believe it's also posted onto social media, I think, and then at least the replay of it is. And then, of course, check out all of our amazing content on social media 24/7. If you can't catch the game, if you have YouTube TV or if Spectrum's not even broadcasting the game on Friday night, I'm not sure what their game is yet. But the San X Middletown game, I will be there live tuning it 24 all night. So if you want to keep up with the game that way, you can. And of course, we have also some other amazing coworkers that do some great content as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
that is everything we've got. That will do it for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for listening, watching, and we will see you next week.